Okay, welcome back for Monster Month. That's right, It Figures becomes Monster Month this month, all October long. So the action figure I have for you today comes from the movie A Nightmare on Elm Street for the Dream Master. And I actually bought this figure about maybe 4 or possibly even 5 years ago. So I've had it for a while, and I bought it off of eBay. Found it for pretty cheap when I found it, and I was like, oh, what the heck, I'll go ahead and get it. So this character also comes from the Cinema of Fear collection that brought out several years ago. And they actually had several figures and a few different series. So the character I found was Debbie Stevens. And Debbie Stevens in the movie is played by the actress Brooke Thies, who went on to actually star with Heather Langenkamp in a sitcom called Just the 10 of Us. So as I pan up here, I think you're already starting to get the gist of who this might be. Maybe the Roach Trap actually gives it away. This is the girl who was really into fitness and had a fear of bugs. So then Freddy shows up and turns her into a cockroach. So here's the entire package. So it's not up so close so you can see the whole thing. Okay, so I found this figure on eBay for about $5. I think I paid about $5 for it, and with the shipping it was like $10 or so. But since then I've looked this figure up, and it actually goes for about $20. Sometimes more, sometimes $30. Kind of depends on who you're looking at and where to find it. And I think it's actually gotten a lot more rare than when it first came out. When it first came out, I don't think anybody was really interested in this figure because of it's just the girl that turns into the roach. But I think there's been a lot more interest in it lately because now it's not seen too often. I don't think too many people even know that this figure was even made. So as you can see, it's a normal blister pack. I've actually had it sitting on my shelf for quite some time, so if you see any dust on this, that's why. Okay, so here's the other side of the figure, other side of the blister pack. So as you can see, this figure is produced by Mezco. So here's the back of the figure, and as you can see, as I pan up here, you can see that it is Series 4 of the Cinema of Fear collection. And there's Debbie at the top, with of course Jason and Freddy. Now this particular Freddy is of course the doctor version of Freddy, where he shows up in the one scene and says to Dan, well, it ain't Dr. Seuss. So I've actually looked for this action figure, and I've found it a few times on eBay, and a lot of the people were selling this one because it is kind of a rare figure of Freddy. They haven't really made a figure of him like this and since this one. I think this is the only figure they ever made of Freddy and his doctor apparel. And right down here it actually says what it comes with, and it says bone saw, pizza with faces, and an alternate head. So it actually comes with the nightmare pizza with all the different faces, and with Rick, the little meatball. So it actually comes with that. And of course over here we have Jason in this line from Friday the 13th Part 3, and it says he comes with an axe, a machete, a severed arm, and an alternate head, which I'm assuming is one where he doesn't have the hockey mask on, maybe, or maybe has the cut in his mask from the axe. And then of course in the center is Debbie, which we're about to open up and take a closer look at Debbie Stevens. Okay, first up, let's take a look at the stand that actually comes with Debbie. Alright, so as you can see from here, there's footprints where you actually stick the figure, and the little pegs that you can stick the figure on, because there's peg holes at the bottom of the figure where you can actually set her down on this stand. And what the stand is replicating here is the inside of the Roach Trap. So you see all the stickiness and all the texture of the actual roach motel that she's stuck in, which is actually pretty cool. I mean, just for what it is, that's actually kind of a cool thing. It's kind of veiny because of what it's supposed to be, all the glue and whatnot, and it's got an orange tint to it. And pretty much looks like what the floor of the inside of a roach motel might look like. I don't know. I've never visited one. But I heard that if you check in, you can't check out. Okay, so here we have Debbie's right and left arm with her right and left hands and pretty painted red fingernails, because Debbie's, of course, into beauty and kind of vain and vanity and all that kind of thing. So these are the arms that actually flop down on the floor once Debbie starts to turn into the roach. Once the roach arms start to emerge from her actual arms and they start to turn into the roach. These actually hit the floor and they just kind of flop there on the floor. And I liked the way they did that in the movie, because it was very realistic to me, I thought, anyway, because that's pretty much what they would do. They just kind of flop onto the floor if you were going to turn into a roach. But then again, it's a nightmare, so things get crazy in nightmares, don't they, Dave? So these arms are kind of small, but they're actually pretty well detailed, and you can kind of see at the end of it here, you see the bloody portion where the roach arm had broken the real arms off, so you can kind of see a bloody stump there, and it's kind of hard to focus in on it from my camera because these arms are kind of small, so once I hold them up it's kind of hard to focus in on that, but they actually look really good. They're really very detailed. They actually look like Debbie's hands, I guess. And of course you see her red fingernail polish. Okay, so now we have Debbie's right and left roach arms. And again, these are really well detailed. They look like roach legs, actually, or roach arms, I guess it would be. Well, in Debbie's case, they're arms, but they look like roach legs, and I've seen enough roaches to understand that. As much as I don't like them, I've seen enough of them to know that these are definitely roach legs. I mean, you can't really get away from what they look like. And they're all pretty detailed and pretty well painted. They don't move. They're just plain plastic. And they're kind of rubbery. I mean, you can kind of bend them a little bit, but I don't want to bend them too much and have them break on me. So as you can kind of see at the top here, there's a little like ball joint that's there, and this is where you actually put these arms onto Debbie, because they come separately in the package. Of course, you gotta actually, so you actually gotta insert them onto Debbie's arms, which is what we're about to do here in just a few moments. Okay, so before I actually put the roach arms on Debbie, or the stand or anything, I wanted to just kind of show how she actually stands up. And I'm sure on a flat surface she would stand pretty well, but I've got this foam here, so I had to do some finessing to actually get her to stand. But once I got her there, it looks like she's standing pretty well on her own. She hasn't fallen over yet, so that's pretty good. Okay, now I'll go ahead and put her on the stand, because I'm sure on this foam, once I do put the arms on her, I'm pretty sure they'll she'll fall right over. So I'm gonna go ahead and put her Roach Arms on and put her on her actual Roach Motel floor, and there she goes. Okay, so I thought I'd show real quick how to actually do this. There's, like I said, there's holes at the bottom of Debbie's feet here, so you just have to plug Debbie into the actual stand. I'm trying to look through my camera and do this, but there's little holes there where you actually put the plugs in, so the pegs, and there it goes. And it's really pretty sturdy, it's pretty tight, so she's on there pretty good. Okay, so now I have Debbie all together on her stand with the Roach Arms intact. And I have to say, this is a pretty long figure as I keep panning outward, and still you don't really even see the end of their Roach Arms until I do that. So there you go. So I used the cardboard backing here just so that you can actually see in detail the Roach Arm, because as I tried to focus in on it, the white background kept drawing it out of focus. So I wanted to be able to kind of show in detail what these arms look like attached to Debbie. And here's the other one going down her right Roach Arm. And of course you see the smaller Roach Arms coming out of her shoulders, and the expression on her face, and there's even some sweat on her shirt in her cleavage. Okay, so once again, it was kind of hard to focus on the figure itself without something in the background. So again, I'm using the cardboard backing of the figure to actually be able to focus on Debbie here. Debbie actually doesn't have a whole lot of movement. She doesn't have a whole lot of articulation. She does have some in her head, which is very little because of the way her hair is. It actually, you can turn her head or you can tilt her head, but it doesn't, even though it's ball jointed, it doesn't move very far. So there's a little bit of articulation there. There's also some articulation in her waist. So you can turn her waist back and forth, up. You can actually turn her waist all the way around, but I'm not going to do that here. Now, as far as Debbie's legs are concerned, there is no articulation whatsoever in them. They are stationary, right where they are. Now, as for Debbie's Roach Arms, I know this is probably going to be a little bit hard to see, but there is no articulation in her Roach Arms, because once you actually get them on here, which was kind of hard to do, once you actually get the pegs to stay in, you don't want to move it because they will pop right out. They just fall right off. So if she was ever to fall off a shelf, her arms would just fall right off. That's pretty much it. But as far as the look goes, I like how this looks. It actually looks meaty and torn up just like in the movie. So they did a good job as far as the sculpting goes of all of this, as well as the sculpt on the arms themselves. Now here of course is the left arm, and one of these pegs actually has like a smaller peg, and I believe it's this one, like on top of it. So you can actually distinguish which one's left and which one's right to put on her, because it has like an extra spot for that, for like the inside of the Roach Arm that connects to her arm. So very detailed. And once again, you've got all this meat hanging there from her arms, where the Roach Arm, came out. Now actually the sculpt on Debbie's face is not too bad. It's got a nice expression of what the hell is happening to me. You know, what is going on, what the F. So it's kind of got that good expression, but does it actually look like Brooke Thies? Somewhat, I guess, but not really. It looks more just like a girl. Just a girl with dark hair. So overall, I like the sculpt of Debbie. I think it turned out really well for what it is. It's not bad. It's painted well. I liked all the meat and stuff that's hanging from her arms, like I said. But I'm a little disappointed in some of the articulation, and I'm also kind of disappointed in the way the arms fit into her, because they're really hard to get into those pegs are really hard to put into the holes where they're supposed to go. You really have to jam them in there. But once they're in there, be careful, because they will fall right out. That's what's really bad about it. So here's Debbie's backside. Her nice curved tone. I don't know if Brooke Thies actually would own up to that or not. But she might have at one time. Which I always thought this character of Debbie was actually a pretty cool character in the movie. I actually liked her. And I like the way they did her hair on this as well. Of course, the last feature on this is the Roach Trap itself, the Roach Motel that Freddy squeezes once Debbie is caught in the glue of the trap. And it actually says on it, Roach Trap. And there is kind of sort of like a little hole in there. I know it's probably really hard to see because this is really small. But on either side there is kind of like an indentation or a little hole to kind of look like a roach trap itself. But it's pretty cool. I mean, it's really small, so I know it's probably not focusing real well. So I'm trying to put it up against something so that you can see it. But it's actually a nice little touch to have the roach trap itself. So there you have it, Debbie Stevens from Nightmare 4. A nice action figure overall. I'm not overly impressed with it, but it's not bad for what it is. I mean, it's a cool little addition to the Nightmare on Elm Street series, and I think they could have put a little more into it. I think they could have done a little bit more with it, and maybe even, I don't know, maybe attached the arms to her some way, where you don't have to necessarily put them on there, because you can't put her real arms on there because obviously they're just stumps. So could they have attached them in some way? Possibly. But it would have been cool to also have some movement in her roach arms as well, and to actually have them be able to bend, or make some kind of joint there where they could bend a little bit. But they don't even do that, because even in the movie, I mean, she's kind of flailing the arms around, and you see the arms kind of bend back and forth as she's moving. But these don't do that. They're all stationary. So this action figure actually becomes a statue, is really what it becomes, because there's not much you can do with it. But overall, it's not a bad sculpt on it. It's not a bad look. I think they did a good job as far as sculpting and painting the figure. Overall, I think this isn't a bad figure for Monster Month. I think it stacks up pretty well for being what it is. Is it a great figure? No, not really, but it's not a bad figure. Is it worth $10? Yeah. Is it worth 20 or 30 or 40? Like some people on eBay like to sell it? No. It's not worth that, but $10, it's not so bad. So if you like what you see here, of course you can always hit that little subscribe button. We've got more stuff coming for Horror Month and Monster Month. It's all coming your way in these 31 straight days of horror related everything. So this is the month. This is it. This is the time of the year that we do all this stuff. So get ready, because there's more coming your way. So of course the last thing I guess I would have to remind you guys all of Horror Month is you can always check in, but you can't check out.